everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of Constructed Criticism. I'm your host, Spencer, and I'm joined by my co host, MT Jesus himself, Matt Kling.
Hey, how's it going?
Ah, it didn't pop. It didn't pop. It's me popping champagne.
Yeah,
Matt! Matt, look at me. I poured a glass to toast you. To toast you, my friend. Congratulations. Cheers.
Thanks.
Where's your champagne?
Sorry. Oh,
I thought. Wait, did you not get the memo?
I did not get the champagne memo.
Now I just look like a guy that wants to drink champagne on his podcast. Was that not true already? I don't know. So why are we toasting, Matt?
Well, I won a PTQ this weekend.
Woo! I'm so happy. How do you feel?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm excited to get another crack at it. So
I am so excited for you, dude. So you probably couldn't have won that PTQ without our sponsor at Oasis Games.
almost definitely.
Like, you just wouldn't have had the cards.
Yeah.
So if you too want to win a PTQ, you can shop at Oasis Games. Use the code CCMTG at checkout to get 15% off your order. Use the code would that be good to get 4% off of every order. It would be good to win a PTQ using cards from Oasis Games, Matt.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Yeah, factual. I can also attest to that. So cheers to us. But really, cheers to Oasis. All right, celebration over, man. That's not even true.
Back to business.
We are still having an awesome time over in our Discord, so don't forget to check that out. Head on over to the Discord. The link is in the show notes. And yeah, it's really fun time in there, Matt. It's popping off. People are getting more and more active.
I've been making some appearances as well, trying to
stir the pot with your broken decks.
Add some conversation.
Yeah, and we are going to be doing a streamer event for the Discord, so it's going to be a winner-take-all event that will be announced soon. So if you're a streamer that wants to get involved in kind of some of the tournaments that are going on in the esports world for Magic, we're going to be running one to kind of test out Battle 5. So join the Discord to kind of see that when it gets announced. With that being said, though, Matt, this show is also brought to us by our patrons because they're super awesome. And we have an awesome question of the week this week. Do you want to read it?
Sure. So our patron question is, what is the best way to learn a new archetype? I want to expand my range, but don't really know how to approach it.
Why don't you start on this one?
Well, I think that the easiest answer is just that you're going to have to force yourself to play something else. Like, there's no real... I don't really think there's a way to kind of ease yourself into it.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like, for me recently, I did that Quest for 10 stuff a couple standards ago, and I'm trying to find a good time to do it again. But, that really, like, pushed me. It was like, you don't even have a choice. Like, you have to go get 10 wins with this deck that did well. You have to go get 10 wins with this deck that did well. You have to go get 10 wins with this deck that did well. And something else that it caused me to do is, like, if I was having success with a deck, I don't really want to stop. So I usually ended up getting, 14, 20, wins with those decks. And having to write down my thoughts on the deck, what I thought about that experience, what I thought about those decks, and having to structure that. I mean, for me, that was, hashtag Quest for 10, dude. Like, that expanded my Magic range a lot in the last year.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense as an approach to me.
And, like, the thing that I learned the most from that is just the ability to, like, now when I want to play a deck, I kind of have this rhythm that I can get into, like, all right, I want to get 10 wins with this deck before I make any changes. Now I want to try and get 10 wins with that version and kind of stuff like that. And it's really helped me pick better decks and be more comfortable picking a deck because I have this system that I've put in place for myself to start to understand archetypes.
Right. Yeah, I think that just knowing that it's something that you need to do if you want to be the best is important. Like,
yeah, they've kind of already hit that.
You're never going to be the best Magic player if you're just only playing one archetype all the time.
Right. I think that the fact that this listener, and I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Kyle. Anyway, I should be better at putting that information in the show notes. I'll try and put that information in the show notes just to give you a special shout out. But I think that this listener already having this piece of information, like that they want to do this, that they want to expand their range, like that's certainly not something that I thought about for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I played the same deck even for a very, very long time when I first started playing Magic.
Yeah. So I think that you're on the right track and kind of forcing yourself into those new situations. You can give it any kind of structure you want, and possibly having goals like the where you want to get to with each archetype can kind of help you measure that success. But yeah, I think that you're on the right track already just by having this thought.
Yep.
Well, let's go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it can also be helpful to play decks that you think that you might specifically not like for whatever reason. Like, I know there was a time when I just hated Tron, and, refused to play it. And then I played it at a Grand Prix, and I have actually found that I enjoy it. And it also just broadens my range to more things whenever I think like Tron is good, or if I think another archetype that's similar is good.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny because like I think about kind of times in my life where I've like made the decision like I'm gonna learn how to play aggro decks. I'm gonna learn how to play control decks, and like getting to a proficient point with all of these archetypes. It's certainly helped me. It's probably the thing that I dedicated the most time to in the last 2 years, and it has certainly made cashing 1Ks a lot easier. You're just like, all right, I think this is the best deck this week. Let's go.
Definitely.
Let's talk about always improving, though. I think that I hope that this was helpful for our listeners who are trying to be always improving. But Matt, I'm gonna go first because yours is gonna be way better than mine.
Is it?
I don't know. I want to talk about an opponent that I had trying to figure out when to activate their oven, Matt.
Okay.
So you're playing Juncat, and you have a cat, a food, and an oven in play, and it's my end step, and you have all of these cards in your deck that care about sacrificing, that care about things dying. How often do you think it's correct to sacrifice that food token during my turn on like turn 3 through 5?
The only times I do it is if I'm planning on attacking with the cat or blocking with it. That's the only time you should ever bring it back.
And in these situations, I had an O3 in play, so that was off the table.
Right.
And this person was having some trouble kind of figuring out like how to get the most value out of this engine. And it was interesting to me. It was something I want to talk about the podcast is like, oftentimes Magic players see a cool interaction and they want to do it. I think often we have to sit back and ask ourselves why we're making these plays that we're making. Like, yep, this does deal 2 to 3 damage if you do it now, and maybe that's all you needed, but that food isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, I've actually had a very similar game play out where I ended up with just a food and a cat in play, and the oven was gone for whatever reason, and I just sat there with the food for several turns, and I was like, this feels bad, but I already know that if the cat was in play, nothing would be different.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of hard to kind of figure out that, like, the cat's still representing that life drain no matter what. And I think that my opponent was kind of trying to process that. And I wonder if there's, like, something that we can take away from that for our listeners. I'm not sure how to more explain it than kind of think about why you do things and questioning yourself.
Right. Yeah, I mean, understanding what you're actually doing and trying to have a reason is really important. Something that we've harped on a lot of times on this podcast.
Yeah. And I wonder how often I still don't question myself enough. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Because I think that so often I'll go into autopilot mode and then I'll realize like I have to remember, why did I do that? Like if I had done it this way, it would have been way better.
Right. It's easy to fall back into those habits, especially if you're not actively trying not to. So.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the always improving moment that I want to talk about this week. I heard you did something, qualified for some tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was like an improving moment specifically, but I did win a PTQ this weekend, or a WPNQ rather. But
does this mean you can cut your hair?
I was thinking about it, and the only times that I've really qualified for Pro Tours, my hair was pretty long. So I feel like if I cut my hair now, I might just lose all the juice.
I was thinking this too. I was like, wait, does this mean he cuts his hair? How long do you want it to get? Is the real
No,
question.
I would have liked to have cut it a year ago. I'm just apathetic. I don't know. I just don't like getting my hair cut, and I prefer to have my hair cut, but I don't like to get my hair cut. You know?
I hate getting my hair cut too. But, if you get your hair cut for this, I could completely understand it. It's, a tradition at this point. Every time you qualify for a pro tour, you get a haircut.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, it's like the reward, right? So it's actually teaching your brain, you got to qualify for this pro tours, otherwise you're gonna look you're gonna look like Rapunzel.
You know,
So what do you think? I mean, let's be honest. This episode is gonna be different because you didn't even know what this episode was about until like 3 hours ago.
yeah, that's true. You kept it away from me, so
Yeah, and this is gonna be about you and the things that listeners can learn from you. One thing that has changed for me recently that I've been talking about on Twitter a couple of times, and that I celebrated earlier this year in some situations, is that I like to celebrate successes now. I think that it's important. I think that recognizing the achievements of the people around you and lifting them up is important. And so today's podcast is going to be about you. So, if you want to save your always improving segment for the rest of the show, I can understand why.
sure. I mean, like I said, I just I'm not sure if that was an improving moment, but that is what happened. So,
You want to talk about the best deck in a format?
what specifically about the best deck?
I'm just wondering if you want to talk about some kind of blue-green deck that's being played in Pioneer.
If I want to talk about a specific best deck,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. This deck does have expos, though, Matt.
So, if anybody remembers the blue-green food deck from before Oko got banned in Standard, it's exactly that deck. And it's now the best deck in Pioneer.
Yeah, so we have blue-green, I would call it ramp. Like, I would call this a ramp deck. But yes, it is in fact an Oko, Wicked Wolf, Gilded Goose deck in Pioneer. So it's safe to say that Jerry invented this deck?
I am not 100% on that. He certainly popularized it.
Yeah, so Jerry posted an article about this deck last week. And then, Matt, it was 9 of the top 18 decks, which are the decks that did 7 or 1 or better in the PTQ. And then apparently it also won a bunch of other stuff.
Which is fairly impressive considering the only way that this deck list has come out is like either people that had SCG Premium to read his article or word of mouth, right? So like it's not like we had a bunch of Moto results
We didn't
already.
even have that many days with it. Like,
right.
The article got published and like just a few days later, without any lists being posted, this deck just took over.
Right. Yeah, it's impressive. It makes me wonder whether it's interesting to think about whether it will become less dominant or more dominant as we go forward, right? Because a lot more people are going to be playing it, but also a lot more people are going to be attacking it as well.
Yeah, so let me read off the deck list. We have 3 Walking Ballista, 3 Elvish Mystic, 4 Gilded Goose, 3 Alana War Elves, 4 Hydro Crisis, 2 Scavenging Ooze, 4 Jade Light Ranger, 4 Wicked Wolf, 4 Oko, 4 Nissa, 2 Heart of Kirin, 23 lands in the form of Botanical Sanctum, Breeding Pool, 1 Castle, Garen Brig, 4 Nykthos. Yes, this is a Nykthos deck. 4 forests, or 8 forests, and 2 Yavimaya Coasts. The sideboard is 2 Gust, 4 Negate, 2 Harvester, 2 Lifecast Bestiary, 3 Lovestruck Beast, 2 Reclamation Sage. Matt, it is no secret that I'm probably already in love with this deck. When Mason posted it in our chat, I said I was in love with it. But what did I say first?
Well, you said that there's no way that Jade Light Ranger is correct, which is why I thought it was very funny when you read Jade Light Ranger with the inflection that you did.
Yeah, because I think it's still wrong. What do you think about it, though?
I think Jade Light Ranger is fine.
Do you think the pips matter enough?
Certainly, if you're going to try to play Nykthos, it's important to have things that cost green.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. I also think it's a reasonable card in this deck anyway.
So talk to me about when you saw this deck. We saw this deck before it did well. It just got posted in one of our group chats. What do you think, man? Like, what was your first impression?
So the thing that I said to Mason when he sent this deck list was, this is the best fair deck I've seen. Basically, if the format is incredibly fair, I think this is the best deck. And given the outcome of the last few tournaments that we've had, I assume that the format was very fair, at least this weekend.
Yeah. Is that how you would attack this deck?
How would I attack this deck? I would try
No,
to do something.
I'm saying, is that how you would attack it? Is doing something unfair?
Yes, yes. Definitely, you have to be doing something that's not on the regular axis, right? It's kind of like the same thing I was saying about the mono black deck before. Like you have to be dodging what they're doing in some way. There's no way that you're beating them just on a my creatures are better, my spells are more efficient axis.
So when you see this deck, Matt, you have 10 1 mana creatures. So one of the things that was said about the banning of Once Upon a Time is it really impacted those 8 elf decks, right? Because you're
Hmm.
losing out on those 2 free elves. And this deck is just like, all right, well then I'm gonna play this other elf that works well with this planeswalker, and let's see how that goes.
Right.
Do you think that that is a direct correlation, like that it was an easy switch for those Nykthos decks to just switch over to Gilded Goose, and just naturally wanted to do that means you just play Oko?
I I don't think that's what it was. I think that the perception was that the format would be fair, and I mean, if you're trying to attack and block, Oko's the king.
Yeah. There was a really funny meme today that was, or I don't know that it was a meme, but anyway, Ben White's posted to Twitter. Excuse me. Ben White's posted to Twitter a screenshot of a chat where somebody suggested that Oko get the new mechanic that Elspeth has that lets you bring it back from its graveyard. I think it's called Escape.
Right.
And somebody else was like, it might have even been Ben, just said, I don't even know that would make Oko more powerful since Oko never dies.
Yeah. Comes into play with 100 loyalty anyway.
And it's true. I think that, like you said, if you're going to attack and block, then Oko is certainly king. And I'm impressed with this deck just on its baseline. The sideboard is pretty coherent. The main deck has reasons for everything that it has. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we legitimately played this deck the whole time, right? Like the only cards that are even different are
The elves.
you get more elves, but we had Once Upon a Time, right? So it's kind of a wash. And we had Paradise Druids. So like the only real difference is that you're playing
Jade
Light
Rangers and Scavenging Uses.
Yeah, it's really only like 4 or 5 cards different. You know what I mean? Like,
What do you think of the Heart of Kyrans?
um, I'm sure they're fine. I don't know if that's the highest impact 2 drop you could be playing there, but
Yeah, one thing that you and I had talked about that we'll get into during our deck doctor this week is kind of just when you're playing this many 1 drops and you have you have these high impact 3 drops like Jade Light Ranger and Oko, you need to have 2 drops for when your hand doesn't come together like that.
right.
Was something that you had mentioned with like the blue green deck. And I'm interested to see the way the direction that this went was with Heart of Kiran.
I do like Scavenging News for that kind of thing specifically because
Yeah.
it's a modal card. Like it's either a 2 or a 3 depending on how much mana you have.
Or it's an 11 depending on how
Well,
many.
yeah, I mean, if
Go
we're in
ahead.
the super late game, it's just 2 mana win the game.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, I think that this deck makes a lot of sense. I mean, this deck is pretty obvious, right? It wins by being a ramp deck that has high impact cards that doesn't let you play your game plan. Because if the game's about attacking and blocking, suddenly you can't do that. Wicked Wolf does that. I think Nissa does a good job of, making it so cards matter less and you have extreme advantage by having a one-sided mana flare. Is there anything that, any other key cards or things that this deck is doing to cause it to succeed immediately?
I mean, nothing other than what we just talked about. I mean, I don't know how far down the rabbit hole you want to go, but like if you're playing the best fair deck and everybody else is playing fair decks, then you're gonna have a huge advantage.
Yeah, I think that I hope that we don't see Nykthos as a ban for this. I hope that
I don't think banning Nykthos would even matter for this deck. Although I have wanted the banning of Nykthos forever, but
Why is that?
why do I want Nykthos banned, or why do I think that there's not very good in this deck?
No. Why do you want Nykthos banned?
I don't think that it does anything interesting or fair. I don't know. Doing something unfair specifically isn't a problem, but I just don't think that it does anything interesting that is worth having in the format. I think
Okay.
that almost all the time when Nykthos is being activated, it's game ending, and not in like a way where somebody outplayed somebody. It's more just that like now they just have the ability to cast every card in their hand.
Sure. Well, I'm excited for this deck. I'm excited to try it out. And if you're playing an event this weekend before Monday, it's probably the deck you should be playing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So that is going to replace our power ranking segment because if we had done power rankings, we would have just talked about this deck. With that being said, let's move on to our next segment, which is Training Grounds. And this week's Training Grounds is labeled Matt Kling.
Wow.
Did you ever think you'd be at Training Grounds, Matt?
I did not see that coming.
But this does mean that it costs you 2 less to activate your abilities.
Nice.
You never
But it can't cost less than 1, though, right?
Well, it can if it's only colorless.
I don't think that's true. I think training. Oh no, maybe they fixed it after Training Grounds. Maybe Training Grounds did allow you to do that.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure if you had 2 of them with the Scion of Ulamog or whatever, or the Spawn of Ulamog, you could just go infinite. So, how old do we sound talking about Training Grounds? Like
No,
people,
it does specifically say that the effect can't reduce the amount of mana by
Less-
less or
by-
to less than 1.
Sure. Still, how old do we sound? We named this after a card that people don't even know exists. This segment is named after a card so old that there are people listening to this podcast that are probably like 3 or 4 when that card was printed.
I'm not even sure that I knew before this exact moment that this segment was named after a Magic card. I mean, I knew that Training Grounds existed, but I didn't realize that like that was a pun.
You were part of the invention of the pun.
Are you sure?
Maybe
I
it
mean,
was
I know I was there when we started the podcast, but like
I mean, I
don't
guess it
remember
could have
inventing
just.
the
It was
Training
on
Grounds
episode
specifically.
3 for what it's worth, and it's possible that you weren't part of the decision. It was just me and Casey. I don't know. I don't know. It was 10 years ago or whatever.
Right.
But that being said, Matt, you are the Training Grounds this week, and I get to interview you. So I wanted to kind of take a moment to celebrate you, to talk about, you've played a lot of Magic: The Gathering in your lifetime, and I wanted to pick your mind about it and kind of just, celebrate you and your success recently. You came back to Magic, started losing to Spencer at 1Ks, but you did win a PTQ.
It's true. I think you gave me the fire I needed by beating me so badly.
That could be true, to be honest. I was talking some mad crap. With that being said, how did you actually start playing Magic?
Well, I started playing in high school, and then I took a break for a long time when I moved back to Salt Lake. And then the Duels of the Planeswalker game came out for Xbox. And one of my friends asked me if I have ever seen this game. And I still had some of my old Magic decks, and I told him that I just had actual Magic decks. And then anyway, he convinced me that we should play some tournaments, and then the rest is history.
Which one was this?
Which one?
Which friend?
Devin.
Devin. Okay.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure which of the brothers it was.
Mhm.
So, the rest is history is true, but you played your first tournament. Do you remember where it was?
My first paper tournament?
Yeah.
My first paper tournament was in... It was in Layton, I think.
Your first
I don't
tournament
remember
was
the
in
name.
Layton?
I don't remember the name of the store. Well, because they ran Legacy was the thing, and I didn't have any standard decks.
Oh man, what was that like?
It was interesting. Honestly,
Did you play Slivers?
I did play Slivers, yes.
Okay.
I'm not convinced that I had the worst deck there. I beat a Hypergenesis deck pretty badly because my deck was built completely nonsense. Like I had all the five to cast Slivers and no good way to cast them.
So you won a match at your first Magic tournament. It was Legacy.
I didn't win the match. I won a game.
Oh, you won a game.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, my opponent Hypergenesis, and then the things that I put into play were a lot better than things that they put into play.
Sure. Is that the only game you won that night?
Yeah, I think so.
So why go to the second one?
I don't know. I don't think that losing has ever really deterred me from doing something. If
Okay.
anything, when I lose, the only thing that I want to do is do it more until I get better.
That's a good thing to have about yourself. When do you think that you first considered yourself a competitive Magic player?
I'm not really sure. I don't think there was a turning point or anything. I think it's more of a gradual transition. Um, and to be honest, uh, my ego is probably a bit inflated when I first started playing Magic, so there's a pretty good chance that I thought I was better than I am now, even then. So,
Do you think that we're gonna come back to that, by the way?
okay.
Um, you played Halo competitively. I think it was Halo 3, right?
Yes.
How good did you get?
Pretty good. I mean, there was a website called Game Battles, maybe? I forget what the name of the website was now, but we started a team on there, and we played some matches, and we ended up playing against a team that was supposed to be like they were supposed to be really bad, like it was supposed to be like a gimme match, and we ended up beating them, but just barely. And then they ended up being the number two ranked team on Game Battles, like shortly after that. So
Do you think that you are better or worse at Magic than you were at Halo?
probably better. I don't know. It's close though. It's about the same, I would say.
Do you think that Halo helped you?
Well, it certainly helped me accept the fact that you're just not going to win all the matches, right? Um, Once you delve that deep into it, you're just going to get to the point where you're, winning some and losing some. So I guess it gave me thicker skin.
With that being said, you just said that you think that you thought you were much better at Magic, possibly better than you think you are now. When you started, how did that transition come about?
Well, I think that has a lot more to do with when your only sample is your friends, and you're the best player in your friend group, then it's hard to it's hard to realize that there are people that are that much better out there, right? Especially in a game as complex as Magic, because you just see the first play that you see and don't realize that anybody could possibly come to any other plays. You're like, oh, this is the play that spends my mana. This is the play that spends my mana. And then you watch professionals play and you're like, oh yeah, I would have done all these things, but you don't realize that like it's not about what they do 90% of the time. It's what they do the other 10
Yeah.
or, whatever the percentages are.
Do you think that at what point did you realize that there was players better than you for what it's worth? Like that you were like, oh, these people are way better than me.
Um, I mean, I'm sure that, somewhere in my mind, I always knew that there were people that were better than me, obviously, right? That's why they're winning and I'm not. Like in the like the pro circuits or whatever.
Was it pretty immediate though? Like, did you go to your first PTQ and think, oh crap?
Um, I don't know. I think by the time I went to my first PTQ, I I did okay. I went a long time playing Magic before I played any PTQs.
Dude, me too. I don't know if that was good for us or bad for us.
Right. Yeah. I think that I wish that I would have started earlier, but
Me too.
again,
Why
I
do
don't
you
really
wish
have a
that?
problem. I don't really have a problem losing. So,
Why do you wish that? What's your reasoning?
well, I just think that that's when you start playing the game. Really, it's just. I mean, it's a personal opinion. I know that there are other ways to play Magic, but I don't. For me, I didn't really start playing the game until I started playing competitive events.
One thing I know about you is kind of your ability to pick a deck, that you think is good and at an exact moment, learn it, and then just, take it to your next tournament. How did you develop that skill?
I think that came from playing so much Magic that I couldn't possibly justify playing the same decks over and over again. Like, if you are testing the same modern format for months and playing, 40 hours a week, you just basically have to play everything. So,
Do you think that was that something that happened as you transitioned to older formats? Like, just think of the amount of Legacy that you played.
right, yeah, Legacy's a little bit too open for that, I think. But I think just broadening your horizons to as many decks as possible is really the way to just be able to choose any deck at a whim.
Okay, but how did you develop the skill to find out what the deck is? It's one thing to be able to play every deck, but how do you develop the skill to like this weekend? You looked at a deck from the deck squall that we're going to the MC. You said this is the best deck. Immediately picked it up. I don't know how much you played, and then you
Not
want to
much.
PTQ with it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that that's something that just develops over time. Like you see enough formats, you can kind of just tell where a deck attacks a metagame.
Where did this deck attack it? Like you played Flash, by the way. I don't think we
Well,
said
I
that.
think yeah. So I was playing blue green flash, and I think that the secret was that all the decks were combo decks to some degree or another, right? Like Jeskai Fires is a combo deck, Gen Sacrifice is a combo deck, and I think that the best way to beat those kind of decks is through pressure and counter magic, right? So it made a lot of sense to play Frilled Mystic to me. Um, I immediately noticed that this deck was playing a lot more ramp, obviously, than the other flash decks, and that was something that really appealed to me as well. Like,
Because it made your
be,
field mystics better.
right, being able to play Frilled Mystic on 3 versus on 4 is huge.
Yeah, one of the first things that I had said, I actually said it on the podcast a couple months ago, was just I wanted to try Growth Spiral and Flash,
Mm-hmm.
and we had talked to one of our friends about that. He had pitched us the idea, and then obviously I saw this deck and I was like, well, this definitely plays Growth Spiral.
Right. Yeah, it also just makes a lot of sense for any deck trying to play a tempo game, right? Like that, you're always going to have use for the extra mana. Like being able to quench something as well as play Night Peck Ambusher early is really powerful.
So, kind of moving on from picking the best deck, I know, kind of watching you, and you've talked about this on the podcast a little bit, that when you're in a match, you're kind of honed in on it. But what people don't know is that when you're not, you kind of just snap out. You're just done. Like you kind of only have those two modes. What
Right.
do you think that one of them helps you, one of them hurts you? Do you think that having that allows you to maybe free up your mind for the times where it matters? Like, how does this benefit you? How does it hurt you?
I doubt that my ability to give up is very helpful. um, yeah, I mean, that's just mostly a character flaw, I think. I
But
have a
the flip side is
I
a
have a very
benefit.
sure. Yeah, I have a very all or nothing mentality. So like, when I'm into something, I'm in it 100%, and then when I'm not in it 100%, I'm out of it. So it's kind of where that comes from. Like if I'm honed in on a match, as you put it, I'm gonna give it 100%, and nothing else is gonna matter, right?
Would you
Whereas
would you describe this?
if I find myself at less than 100%, I'm just off it.
Sure. Would you describe it as a skill, or would you describe it like you just had like a character flaw?
No, I would describe it as the latter. I think it's. I mean, it's just not a. It's not a good quality for a human being. I think that balance is really important, and if you can only think in absolutes, it's just not very good.
Then you're a Sith. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, do you think that you could make it into a skill?
I'm sure that there are advantages to it, right? Just like there are advantages to a lot of the different things that are not necessarily
Well, I mean, if you could just
to the benefit
if you
overall.
could just overcome the bad part, right? Like if you could just make it so that you didn't have the other part.
Yeah, maybe. I think it would still be pretty hard to do that though. Like it's again, it's I mean, if I could just convince myself that I needed to give 100% all the time, maybe, but like the problem is that whenever I'm not giving 100%, it ends up being nothing.
Sure.
So it's more like if I can believe that 100% is what I should be giving here, then that's fine. But if at any point it drops below that, like for instance, if I'm at a GP, I'll often be doing pretty good. And like I've had multiple GPs where I've started out, 9-1, 10-1, whatever, and then like I'll catch like a loss and then another loss, and then I just don't care anymore.
Sure. I mean, that's certainly a character flaw. Like especially now in the new system, that would just be bad because you just
Yeah,
keep like punting away equity.
sure. I have no idea what the new system is, to be honest with you.
Partial. Oh man, I'm not gonna say this right. Fractional invites. So point
I
rather
mean,
than
that's what they were before too, right?
yeah, but they're way better.
Okay.
So, um, okay. Well, I think that kind of the next thing that I would want to talk about kind of circles back, but playing the best deck. Let's actually circle back to this in a second because I want to talk to you about something else that I didn't put in the show notes because I didn't want you to see it. But I want to ask your opinion on Magic teams and like what the benefits for you has been with working in a team setting, working with your friends, or working on your own. Because the number one thing that I see on Twitter these days about people, or that I see on Discords, is like people trying to get into teams because that's what they think their next step is to improve at Magic. Can you kind of
Sure.
give your insight on this?
I think that it's very important when you're starting a team to make sure that everybody has the ability and the willingness to give the same level that you're trying to give.
Why?
I think it's very taxing on your friendships, and also I think that when I was the last time I was on a team, it was at a point in time when PPTQs were the big thing, and I felt like it was pretty draining to always offer up what I thought was the best deck and strategy for a tournament, and then go to that tournament and find out that half the field was playing it, and then never have that reciprocated.
Sure. Do you think that you helped other people improve through that? Do you think you improved through that at all?
Do I think that I got a benefit from being on the team specifically? I don't.
Do you think that they got a benefit from you being on the team?
I mean, I think that they were playing better decks often, but I think that a lot of their investment levels were not high enough to gain much more than that.
So how do you decide to be on a like how do you decide what somebody else's investment level is?
I think you have to ask them. I think that's the only way.
Do you
And
think
you have to hope
that's
that
like
you
a
have to hope
pretty
that
pretty real conversation?
yeah, you have to hope that they're being honest with you, right? And
Yeah.
I think you also have to understand when they're not, right?
Did you think that you had groups that you improved with before those teams?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that
Do you have groups now that you improve with?
yeah, absolutely.
So with that being said, like the team isn't the thing that makes you improve. It's surrounding yourself with the
Yeah,
the right people.
it's having people that have the same goals as you and want to improve. That's that's way more important than any team. Um, I mean, obviously, if you're surrounding yourself with more people that have the same goals as you, like if you suddenly were on CFB or whatever, that would be great. But
It's a pretty tough conversation. I think it's a conversation that honestly, before you can join a team, you have to have it with yourself.
yep,
Okay, let's circle back to the deck thing. I think that in your time playing Magic, Matt, you have, and kind of even in the answer to your the last question, you kind of talked about this, but you believe in playing the best deck pretty strongly. In Smash, you learn Joker, you learn F tier Palutena, so that like, cause someone's a little bit worse, garbage tier Palu really, but you learn Pikachu, and you tried the best characters. It's
right.
just kind of a belief that you have, regardless of what you're doing, you want to be doing the best thing possible in the thing that you're doing. What kind of edge do you think that gives you, and what kind of cost do you think it is to people who don't do it?
Well, I think that the benefit of doing something like that is pretty obvious, right? Like these things are the best for a reason. Um, if there's any minimal cost, it's just that people are more aware of what you're doing. Like let's take Smash for instance. Like people probably have not played a lot against your, like Lil Mac or whatever.
But dude, my K roll.
So there's some edge to be gained there, certainly by going rogue. But I think that the benefit is so far outweighed by the cost of not just playing the best deck. The decks are the best because they win more. That's just the way that that works.
So the cost is just actual percentage points.
Right. Yeah, you're just worse in a bunch of matchups, like popular matchups.
Is this something that like people need to come to terms with? And also, is it that helpful? Because if eventually everyone is on your plan, then everybody's just playing the same, 70 cards.
I think the best deck changes if it becomes such a large percentage, right? Oftentimes, at least, unless the format is just broken.
That's where I was hoping you were going. So how do you identify when that happens, and how do you identify the best deck for every given week?
I think it's really hard. I honestly don't think it's right very often to metagame against the best deck. I mean, even when you looked at the Pro Tour where food was everywhere, right? Like it ended up being more than 50% of the tournament, but I still don't know that you would have been correct to metagame against it because you're still
It's
not
still
going to
that
play.
much better.
I mean, well, for one, it's still a lot better, and secondly, like even if you played against 66% of your rounds, it's not necessarily enough to be playing a deck that folds to everything else.
If I were to describe the types of tournaments you're willing to play in, I would just describe the actual tournaments: GPs, SCGs, PTQs, 1Ks, challenges, Pro Tours. That's it. That's probably all you're willing to do.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, there's always exceptions, right? Like sometimes I'll just play like a local tournament or whatever. But
Do you prepare for any of these tournaments differently than each other?
um, I think I probably put in a lot less preparation for a tournament that I don't have to travel for.
Sure, so like a 1K or a challenge, it's just kind of
right?
whatever. Mostly the same thing's true of a local
Or I
PTQ.
mean, or a PTQ most of the time. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
So basically, if you're traveling for a GP or an SCG, you're gonna like dedicate the time to like make sure that you're where you're supposed to be. But the cost of not traveling just means you're gonna play something that both of you think is good and that you'll enjoy.
yeah, oftentimes that's true. I mean, it depends. It certainly depends. That's on more of a case by case, but
But if
I'm
you think you
definitely
broke
if
it,
I am traveling, I'm definitely going to put in the effort, right? Because otherwise,
what's the
you know,
point?
what am I doing?
Do you think that you have a way to measure how you're improving, Matt?
I think that's a really internal question. For me, I I'm not sure what the answer is, to be honest. I don't know if I mean, I noticed improvements through, winning more matches of Magic, but that's more of like it's more of a, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like correlation, but not necessarily causation.
Is improving the part of Magic that you enjoy?
Sometimes, certainly. I mean, there have been a lot of points where improvement was the most important thing in Magic for me.
I don't even know if you were on that show when Always Improving was brought to it. I actually don't think you were.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Does Always Improving have a different meaning to you, or a meaning to you that helps you improve, or that you think that others could improve from?
I think that always improving is something that happens whether you realize it or not, right? Like we always say, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. But the truth is, you're probably not getting worse. You're almost always getting better. It's just it's harder to quantify or see sometimes.
Yeah, it's really funny that you bring that up. That was something that I talked to John about when John joined this show. He said, "I don't know that I agree with that," and I said, "It's relative, right? If you're getting better, I mean, obviously you're improving, right? You're learning and things like that. But what about the people that you're competing against? Are you getting in better in comparison to them? Are you gaining any edges, or are you staying where you were, actually declining and where you could be?"
Well, I think that kind of decline is probably just natural, right? Depending on how long you've been playing the game, like you're going to if you don't reach a plateau, you're still going to get to a harder and harder slope, right? Where your improvements are going to be slower and slower as time goes on. Whereas somebody that's just learning the game is going to improve rapidly. So like everybody's always going to be catching up to you,
Yeah.
but you're always catching up to the people in front of you as well.
Is there a mindset that you think that you have, an always improving mindset, that makes it easier for you?
Um, I don't know if I have anything specifically for that.
I just mean, like, do you think that your mindset is that mindset? Like, are you the type of person that's going to think about the things that are going to help you and speed up that process?
Yeah, I mean, usually I won't dwell on things that are out of my control, and like by that you're just automatically being process oriented, right?
What
There are almost no other options. Either you can dwell on things that are not in your control, or you can try to get better at the things that you can control.
do you do both?
I think I would almost never dwell on things that I can't control.
Sure. What do you think is something that you do differently than your peers, that could benefit you, or that benefits you, or that could benefit them?
Um, well, I think that it's more of a combination of everything, right? Like I know people that try as hard as I do to qualify for the Pro Tour, and I know people that are as willing to play the best deck as I am, but it's rare that there are people that are in that same combination, if that makes sense.
Okay. If you were to kind of wrap up the things that we talked about and give a piece of Matt Kling to everybody, it could be your hair, man. You need a haircut. What would you say?
Um, I would say understand what your goals are and always play the best deck.
Well, here's to Net Deckers winning PTQs. Congrats, man. I'm like really
Thanks.
happy for you. I know that it probably doesn't feel quite as cool as top ending a GP, but I'm sure getting that first PTQ one off your back, even if it's after that, you kind of did them in weird order, man. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I'm happy for you and congratulations.
Yeah, I was happy to not get second again. That would have been awful.
You can't pull a Todd Anderson, man. I don't know what to tell
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Well, you can see the decks that Matt and I are playing by going to patreon.com/ccmdg, become a patron of $5 or more. I do want to say a couple things about the Patreon as we're wrapping up. And this isn't just for patrons, this is for everybody. So the first thing is for patrons. I got some comments from people about decks that I had been posting in the Discord and on social media. And they said, hey, like, I thought you were playing this deck, now you're playing this deck. And I said, you know what? I always post the deck that I'm playing, a couple days before the tournament in the Facebook group. But I'm never going to lie about what I'm playing. So I hope that, if you never think that if I'm playing a deck differently than something you saw on social media, I mean, there's a lot of times where I'll change, the deck that I'm in love with, every, 15 hours. And but I will always post the deck that I'm playing in the Facebook group. So know that I'm never trying to pull one over. I went through Gruul, Jeskai, Cat, all for this PTQ. I was never lying when I said I liked those decks. It was just I ended up on Jeskai, and I hope that people know that I'm not going to try and pull one over.
Yeah, I think it's such low upside to try to trick everybody into what thinking you're playing something else anyway, right? Like
Yeah.
there's almost no benefit, and you lose the trust of a lot of people. It's unfortunate that sometimes by the time that you show up to an event, you're playing something different than what you posted.
Right, but I yeah, exactly. But I did post my list beforehand, and I want to apologize to anyone and everyone who felt like I might have been trying something there. The other thing that I want to say is around this time every year, people start reaching out to me on social media, wanting to send me a Christmas gift because they're a podcast listener, and I would like to politely ask people to not do that. If you demand to spend money on me for Christmas because that's how you want to support the show, that's totally fine. But please just send me a screenshot of you donating to a mental health charity. That actually would mean far more to me than any gift you could send me, and that would just make my day. So please, the last 2 years have actually been really cool, like getting things for my kid, getting things for my wife, stuff like that. But to be honest, like I would much rather you donate that money to a good cause. So I just wanted to kind of say that during the segment this week. And I'll post it to social media too. I'll say the same thing to you, Matt. Please don't get me anything, Matt. If you would like to get me something for Christmas, please donate it to like a suicide prevention or a bipolar disorder help kind of thing.
Noted.
Okay. You can join the conversation by joining the Discord or the Facebook group by becoming a patron of $5 or more. The Facebook group is awesome. The Discord is poppin'. We really appreciate everybody who's a part of those. You can follow me on Twitter, Spencer H. You can follow Matt at the Witch Kling, where you can just follow MTG Jesus before his hair gets cut. Yeah. But with that being said, we're gonna give a gift to one of our listeners because on the Discord they asked us for feedback on a deck for their son. And this person was kind enough to come and talk to me during the PTQ this weekend. Were so nice and had such nice things to say about the show that I said that we would gift them a deck doctor. You can get a deck doctor by becoming a patron of $5 or more. Matt, I'm going to read this off to you. This one's interesting. It is mono green stop. We have 4 Mystic, 4 Llanowar Elves, 4 Lovestruck Beasts, 2 Ronus, 4 Steel Leaf, 2 Yovo, 4 Questing Beasts, 2 Surok, 1 End-Raise Forerunners, 2 Galta, 1 Vivian Arcbow Ranger, 2 Nissa, 4 Aspect of Hydra, 3 Heart of Kirin, 1 The Great Henge, and 20 lands. Now, what do you love about this deck?
Well, I've always liked the 1 into 3 aspect of the Stompy decks. Like I've certainly played a lot of Stompy, and I like Yorvo and Lovestruck Beast and Steel Leaf Champion and the whole package there.
Yeah, it was one thing that the version of the Simic version didn't have was Ronus. What do you think of Ronus?
I've played a Ronus, and I played a Ronus in the list that I played at the 1K.
Oh, okay. So you're like, what is it? Was it good for you?
It was fine. Yeah, it was good in a couple of spots where nothing else would have been, but also bad sometimes. So
Yeah, Lovestruck Beast you were telling me earlier was the best one for you.
Yeah, I think Love Strike Beast is just the best or 3 mana 5/5 in the game.
Yeah, especially considering like you're already playing 8 elves. Like it just
Right.
naturally fits into those decks so well.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, is there anything that you don't like about this deck that you think could be better?
I'm a little bit hesitant to believe that Enray's Forerunners is good, but I could just be wrong. I mean, it's definitely not a card that I've played with before. So,
Sure. One
do
thing
they
that
not? Is there not just the one with Emerge that does like the same thing?
there is the one with Emerge that does the same thing. I'm not sure what the cost is on the
Decimator of the
Emerge.
Province.
Yeah. One thing that I was thinking about is if I'm going to play Aspect of Hydra, I want more things that give trample kind of more naturally. So I would be more interested in like more Vivian Arcbow Rangers. Does that make sense? Or am I kind of off base there?
Sorry, what was that? You were saying something about more Vivian Arco Rangers?
Yeah, if I'm going to play something like Aspect of Hydra, I want something that gives trample more naturally. And I think Vivian Arcbow Ranger kind of fits into that more, so I'd like to see more of them.
Sure, yeah. It does seem a little bit odd when you're not playing necessarily a go wide strategy to play something like Enraiser or Enray's Forerunners. I'm looking up Decimator of the Provinces, by the way, and the emerge cost on it is 9, so you actually only get a discount of 1 by emerging it.
Okay, so it's
So
not.
it actually still costs more mana than Enray's Forerunners.
It gives
even
plus
if
3
you
plus
emerge it.
3 though, right?
I'm not sure. I pulled it down already.
Okay. You know, I think that this deck still.
No, it only gives +2/+2.
Okay.
For what it's worth.
I do think that this deck gives, has a lot of power to it. I think that you're going to win a lot of matches to Magic. If this is for your son playing local events, I think that this fits great into like letting somebody play Magic, and like if their goals are local events or even MTGO events, I think they're going to, they could net positive win percentage pretty easily with something like this.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely think this deck could win basically any event. There's no way that it's that far off.
Yeah, I think this is a good starting point, a great starting point. Like I said, I might consider more Arcbow Rangers. I'm not sure about some of the sideboard stuff, but I don't know exactly how I would build a mono green sideboard. I do love Lifecrest Bestiary. I might even play more than the 2 that you have in there now. But yeah, overall, one thing that I would consider. No,
I think
maybe
4
it's bad.
Lifecrafters Bestiary is probably better than the first Prowling Serpapard, for what it's worth.
There you go. What do you think of Prowling Snow Leopard?
Which one's Prowling Snow Leopard?
It's a 4/3 for 3, can't be countered.
Are you sure you're not talking about Prowling Serpapard?
Yeah,
the one that I just talked
whatever.
about?
Is that one you just said?
Yeah.
No, I always think that card is Snow Leopard in my head. I'm glad we're on the same page there. Well, I was just thinking like, I like that we're thinking the same thing, and like, anyway, yeah, I agree with Matt. Yeah, I think this deck is sweet. It's certainly something that you can pick up. I'm not sure how I feel about Nissa, who shakes the world in this deck, though. That's not one that I would. I mean, I guess you've got the Forerunners. I don't know.
I'm sure it's no worse than fine.
Right. I just think that I would like Vivian better.
Right.
So, anyway, that is going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Congrats once again, Matt. I'm glad that I got the chance to celebrate you. I got to interview my best friend on my podcast. Like, whatever. My life is great. Thanks, everybody, so much. Don't forget to hit that like button. Smash that sub button. I did them in reverse because I'm a YouTuber. And, yeah, if you're listening to the show on iTunes or Spotify, please give us a review. It helps the show a ton. Thank you, everybody, so much. And we'll see everybody next week with another episode of Constructed Criticism.